Hi, it's me again. Let's continue with bone growth and remodeling. Okay, so here we're going to look again at the epiphyseal plate and what happens. So um, there's this resting zone of cartilage where nothing's happening. There's this zone where cartilage is undergoing mitosis, meaning that it's going from one cell to two. It's growing, right? And then and then the older cartilage cells here are in this zone. These ones are going to become the template where the calcification happens. So in the periosteum, the cells are secreting the matrix for bone calcification and the deposition of bone. So that's what's happening from the periosteum into this area. And this microscopic one is just looking at the matrix becoming calcified. The cartilage cells are going to die, and they're going to become bone, or the area, that space is going to become bone. So what we have here is an image or a photograph of it at the microscopic level, and what we have here is the illustration, right? So it's just more clearly drawn out, okay, so that we can see it, see those cells more clearly as we look at that. So we're looking at the leg and about the distal epiphyseal plates. Um, this is a radiograph of the ankle joint. And we can see here, these are the cartilage places where cartilage is laid down and bone deposition is happening. So the length is coming from here, and the cartilage is still growing in this area until it stops completely growing and the remaining cells of the cartilage die out and are replaced by bone. We'll talk about fractures later, but again, just want to show here that because it's cartilage in that area and not hard bone, it is an increased risk for fracture site. People are often concerned about pulling as well. So a tension pull or a fall on an outstretched hand or a fall on a flexed hand could lead to a break over the growth plate. So what's going on in the rest of the body? Well, your endocrine glands are going to release the chemical messenger to stimulate growth for bone deposition. So the hormones are the chemical messengers, and we have a huge influx of hormones during puberty. So that means that in this time, right, we have more chemical messengers saying, make our bones grow, make our bones grow. And um, and it's a really important time to do sports, weight bearing activities, athletic activities, because your body is going to have the most available. Okay, it's got the most amount of hormones available, meaning that it's going to keep sending the messages for bone growth, so you have more rapid bone growth, which is what I said before. But the point I'm trying to make is that in addition to that, you can continue to stimulate it, right, through exercise, through movement. So if you can combine those two at that specific age, right, it's kind of like the high school years, then you're going to have great bone deposition for the lifespan. So what happens in this time counts. Psychologically and culturally, sometimes students are in an environment where that kind of athleticism isn't supported, or due to the hormonal changes that are affecting their brain, they don't want to participate in something like outdoor activity or sports. So it's a really important time in folks' lives to be engaged. So if you're motivated to public speak at a high school or a middle school, you could point this out as something that is really important. And sometimes people make choices based on what's good for them. So even in these adolescent years. Okay, so Great. So this one is just talking about things we've already talked about, but distal first and proximal. So um, the cartilage template is going to be completely gone. Uh, it's the distal template that deteriorates first, right? The older cells down there are remaining, so that's why it's distal to proximal on that bone. So not distal from midline, but distal from the center of the bone. Okay, so that's how that works. But this is a bit of a repeat, so we'll just move forward. Okay, so the increase in the bone width, right? Again, the periosteum is secreting, is responsible for the transmission and secretion of the cells that are harbored in that area, if you will. So it's bone deposition will happen underneath the periosteum, and likewise, right, as there's more bone being laid down, the spongy bone thickness is going to increase. So what was kind of thinner is now thicker. The middle of it erodes, right? And that's why we get a medullary cavity. The trabeculi keep being reorganized based on tension or stress. And then the bone thickens and becomes denser. So again, all due to stress load. So let's look at the diagram here together now. So here's a load putting stress or tension onto the head of the femur. So the body weight puts tension on, right? And that tension, I'm pointing with my finger, and that tension here, right, leads to this point of stress where the bone becomes thicker. So it's pulling in this direction, and at the same time, there's a compression force, right? So the bending causes the tension force. The compression is simply the weight coming straight down on it without that bend. So that's the compression force. So you have two forces acting and stimulating growth. Here we see the lines. These are the trabeculi that we were mentioning, and the bone growth in those areas. So again, more stimulation, more it grows in that way. Lovely little illustration here for the compressive forces on this end and the tensile forces happening on this end. So you can see that. The bone is being reabsorbed on this side, right, due to the osteoclast breakdown, and then osteoblast buildup is happening on this side, and the bone's getting thicker and thicker. Gamer's bump. So this is bone deposition based on load or stress, right? So if you are sitting joysticking, I don't know if they still come like this, but if you're joysticking and having your the ulnar side, this is the ulna, but then you have a carpal bone here, and so the carpal bone gets the tension and the stress, and you get this enlarged bump. So that is a example of bone deposition based on load.